Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Behind the Veil, a show that provides insight into the world of people, weddings, and events. I'm your host, Keith Willard. Welcome back. Today, we are going to be talking about how to get published on The Knot, because I guarantee you that if you're involved in the wedding industry, The Knot is kind of the end-all, be-all of things that you want to be a part of. And today, we're going to learn from the source about what it takes to be published on The Knot. But before I bring on Esther Lee, that's her name, let me bring on my co-host, Marcy Gutenberg, with an affair to remember by Marcy. Hi, Marcy.
Hi, Keith.
So, yes, I'm excited about this because, this is one of those things. Publicity is everything. Trying to get published, and especially published on The Knot.
Especially. And with Esther's background, oh my gosh, I'm so excited that we have her on today.
And she's so crazy.
She actually did one of my favorite movies. So I'm excited about all of this.
Oh my God, I'm so excited about bringing her on. Well, let's not hesitate. Let's just go ahead and bring her on. Hi, Esther. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. What a warm welcome. I love being dubbed the source.
Yeah, it goes back to a little bit like the Matrix kind of vibe there, the source. Anyway, but seriously, if you're in the wedding industry, obviously The Knot is really in the news right now because they just came out with a whole wedding survey, real wedding survey, which hit a lot of people in a lot of different ways. And Marcy and I both just went to the Wedding Pro experience that they had in Jupiter? No.
Palm Beach Gardens.
Thank you, Palm Beach Gardens. It's up north somewhere. And had a blast, had an amazing time. Oh my God, met so many of the Knot people, and everybody was so freaking fantastic. And so now to get published on The Knot, I mean, that's kind of like the sign of you've made it when you're able to promote something that is now being shown on The Knot. Do you get that? Does that resonate, or do you still go, really? That's us?
No, it's so interesting. I love that you're saying that because and oftentimes when I have these conversations, I love it because for us, we're creating entire magazines or content, and a lot of it is around helping couples plan their weddings, and obviously we're relying on professionals like yourselves to help steer the ways that we're sharing expert advice. But when I hear it from you and you put it in this context, it just really is flattering, and I appreciate it so much. I'm going to share the feedback with the team too, because what we do, we put so much care into it, but we wouldn't be where we are without you.
Well, I mean that is true, but there's a lot of us out there. That's the thing, is that there's so many event professionals across the United States, and so that's actually where I want to start. Well, first of all, I want to talk about you because you're fascinating. FYI, you are really, really fascinating because to have a BA, and I was just shocked that what your degrees were in, because it had nothing to do with publishing. Nothing. Mm-hmm. So how did that happen?
I thought I wanted to be Christiane Amanpour, international correspondent.
Yeah.
So my background, what I studied was international relations, and it just basically developing countries, how they got to be democratized was one of the most fascinating courses that I took in college. But more so, it's really, I loved history. I've always thrived in this space about learning about European history, just sort of how are we walking through these modern spaces today, and what has happened along the way throughout civilizations in order for us to get here. So it's not a standard turn per se. I didn't study PR, I didn't study communications or events. I did take some classes here and there and got some support from obviously the communications department, but overall, a lot of journalism was self-learned in newsroom settings, which I'm so grateful for.
Wow. It does. I guess it does require a lot of research as well, and so I'm assuming that so does having to publish anything on The Knot. And by the way, congratulations! I heard that you told us that you just published the new edition of The Knot today.
Can I share it with this? It's a little blurry right now.
Oh, it's so pretty. I love the purple.
Isn't it so pretty? Yeah, the colors. Our team did such
It
a
almost
fantastic
matches
job.
Keith's background there.
Right?
Oh yeah, Keith, what a
Ta-da!
trendy color! Look at you.
I'm just saying, it's only been part of my life for 5 years. It's all right. Sooner or later, it would come back around. I knew it.
She's here. No, it's our new issue. It's our summer celebrations, our summer planning issue.
Yeah.
We have quarterly magazine special interest publications, and they're published, once a season, and we have themes around them. So we have the planning issue, the inspiration issue, and this one's a planning issue, but the next one we're working on right now. So the editor currently like planning and writing content and reporting is for our celebrations issue, and then we have our engagement issue, which comes around the time of proposal season. So it's really, we want to be able to hit those beats and help couples throughout the planning journey. But like how else do we do it, other than having these kind of conversations with the many pros that we tap for everything.
So how do you do that? I mean, let's say that I'm brand new into the industry. Obviously, when I have planners that, are interested, and then they come work for me for a season or two, so that way they can get some experience, what have you. And then I always tell them, okay, you got to make sure that you get your name out there. And one of the best ways to do it is get a listing on The Knot, get a listing on Wedding Wire, get a listing on, one or two other sites. But really, Wedding Wire and The Knot are the two big ones. But then to see all of the amazing articles, and I feel like The Knot has really focused on the educational part a lot over the last couple of years, because I feel like you guys are just pumping out information constantly now. How do you get in front of the editors for that kind of stuff? Like, let's say I shot this amazing wedding. Oh my God, it was the best wedding I've ever seen, and the couple was super interesting. But then what? What do I do with it? How do I get it over to you that you then have a chance to see it and also agree that it was amazing, over the top, and fabulous?
Yes. And I love this question because for me, like, there's nothing better than actually connecting. Again, you're the source too. So like in terms of like us connecting with our sources, pros like yourselves who are on the ground, facing everyday situations or planning beautiful events and coming up with gorgeous vignettes or new trends, like you're the creatives behind it too. So for us, it's actually twofold. There are a few avenues to get published. I don't know if you've heard about Real Weddings, either of you. I'm sure you
No, as we have a blank face that just went across, because we knew about Two Bright Lights, and so I figured that at some point you'd get to Two Bright Lights. But what is what you're talking about? Say that again. Real Weddings?
Yeah, so Real Weddings. Yeah. So basically the weddings that you're planning or you're creating, or photographers are capturing, venues are hosting at their events, venues are hosting at their sites. These are real weddings that are being held. So we have 1 million couples who get married every year, right?
Right.
And
Right.
like so many want to get published. Of course, I think it's wonderful that, everyone's weddings are so unique lately. The personalization is happening. And only a select couple, not a couple, but a handful can be published each year, especially in our magazines, because we're limited on space count and page count.
Right. Yeah.
But also on digital too. So online, like these are examples of actual weddings that occur that you're planning and partnering with other vendors on, that then live on the knot.com/content or live in our magazines. And so these are actually showcasing like how the sausage is made, what the couple's story is like. What is that real love story? How did you meet? How did you connect? And then how did you embed your love story? Like, do you have a favorite cocktail? You love the Negroni at Dante. I don't know. I just use
hello. Speaking of Hollywood.
Yeah, exactly. In New York, gosh, their Negroni is so key, by the way. But that being said, I digress. You take that and like you're embedding it into your love story, because that's where you went on dates every Thursday night. So there's a storytelling component with beautiful imagery. Even color palettes can be personalized. And I keep saying this, but I just feel like the real wedding is almost an extension of like, oh, it's like your love story, but you're also encapsulating your wedding brand, like what it means.
But is it a site? Like, is it a website, or is it a thought? Because is it like realweddings.com or like?
No.
That's what I'm like. I'm confused. Like, where do you go?
How would they find it?
Yeah, so you would go on the knot.com /content, and you could do a search for real weddings, or if you know even of a couple who gets published. I love this. What actually in our latest issue, we have this gorgeous wedding at Cedar Lakes Estate of this couple, and it was written by our weddings editor, Hannah Nowak. But this really, it's just like such a beautiful example of how to take like personalized tidbits of your love story, and then how your vendors helped you bring it to life. So like, I don't know, like you really liked a certain type of cake and you had to implement it there.
But how did they get to you with that story?
Yes. So this is where we're going with Two Bright Lights.
Yeah.
So Two Bright Lights is, I want to explain it as like a portal.
Right.
It's like a catch-all where, it's a standardized, like form that you submit with imagery. So oftentimes photographers will submit, but so will planners or vendors who feel as if their work was especially showcased well through a certain event. And I don't know how many you do. Keith, how many do you now do a year?
28.
20. So out of those 28 events, like like the ones that you were like, wow, this couple's story was magnificent. The photography is beautiful. We really captured things from detail shots. Like you submitted on Two Bright Lights. 28 and so,
okay.
Actually,
you're all amazing. Oh my God, every couple was amazing. Of course I'm going to say that. Yeah, please.
It's very true. I know. So submit all 28 or ask the photographers to submit all 28 because, really, like the more, and I keep telling people this, and I said this yesterday in a panel too, but like the more that you submit, and the more that you realize like what we're looking for in terms of quality, in terms of detail shots, also in terms of storytelling, like the way that you're able to position that, it really does make a difference in catching our eye at some point. And I know there are many submissions that happen, but every single one is sifted through.
So words are more important, or just as important as the photos?
I would say like lead with the photos, but still make sure that the words that you're including they get to the photos, they get to the why behind like the images that you're submitting.
So one of the things that I always have, when I go to Two Bright Lights, it's always a process to submit, because first I have to reach out because I was a planner, I have to reach out to the photographer, and then I gotta have their approval, and then I'll get an email from Two Bright Lights that the photographer has given me approval. Then I have to go back in and then select the photos, and then it's a process. It's not like tap here, and you're published. I'm assuming that's you guys use Two Bright Lights on purpose because it kind of filters out at least some of the kind of you know what I mean? Some of the people that are just trying to submit because they're like, oh, if I throw a whole bunch out there, maybe one will hit. And it's like, well, no, you don't want to work that way.
No. And we want everyone who's submitting to be as thoughtful about like the storytelling aspect of it too, and the packaging aspect of it all. I realize like, obviously these submissions do require work on your part, but if you're so exceptionally proud, and I know that you're proud of all 28 events that you've done, of course, but like, let's say that there's like one where you're like, whoa, this couple is really interesting. Their backgrounds and their stories are fascinating. This deserves airtime. Like really, I'm pining to get this published because it's super unique and atypical and feels like it might be a great fit for the knot, which like we're really all about it. We're driving home this idea of inclusivity, thoughtfulness, personalization, just making sure that the wedding is like so original and it's yours. Like that's continuing to be like our philosophy around like just the weddings that we showcase. Like we want it to be like authentic, that's the word that
love that.
Yeah,
because it means that you're looking for that passion. There are some weddings that I take on that are like passion projects for me because it's something that I've never done before. It's something I really am trying to create. Like I'm doing, and this is not a wedding, but I'm actually planning the Lighthouse for the Blind Gala in November, and I'm already thinking on multiple levels, like what are the other senses outside of sight that I can then capitalize on, obviously hearing, touch, taste, smell, and like what do I do in order to create those kind of things? But that brings me to like my next question. How do you get across the experience piece of it in photos? When you talk about authentic and like have that vibe, I have a real hard time being a creative myself, right? how do I get how the feeling of the wedding across in photos, like an experience? How do you get an experience across in photos? Are you looking for people's reactions to stuff, like really great photos of the guests doing the wow moment type of thing, or do you have any guidance at all, like on that?
Maybe something, an emotion that's being evoked from the image.
Yes, right. Okay, I get that. I totally get that.
So definitely, I love the sentiment portion that you had mentioned, Marcy, like the takeaway of the feeling and the emotional piece of it all, because photography actually does convey that so well. I just feel like you can really capture the heart of a moment if the photography is done well. So any detailed shots of maybe like an expression that's zoomed in of the couple, or even like, let's say that this person has a really special henna pattern, that might be the same pattern that their grandmother, I don't know, had as well, or something generationally. It's like something that has to do with the family. Or there's an interesting, have you heard of like how wedding crests are so hot right now? That's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
I feel like I'm totally in the
I
dark.
do them.
I'm like, what? Oh my God, I'm writing this stuff down. I gotta like catch up on this.
Yeah.
They're very hot right now.
Yeah, apparently, I love it because I think crests are so clean and chic, but also like there's a story behind each crest, right? Like if there's a pattern or something, does it speak to your family's history or like your values as a couple? I don't know, like what exactly is the meaning behind that symbolism? So those are the types of details where I feel like you can really tell a couple's story, or even like the planner's vision or like the designer's vision based on those simple details. And I know it still might feel a little bit obscure to you, and I'm happy to unpack it more because like weddings really are about feeling.
Well, and I get that, and so I want to get to like, what has to be included in a submission? Because if somebody's new to submitting, they don't always know exactly what has to be included. I mean, luckily I work with Megan Ely with OFD Consulting. So she's been a huge guide, and she's been on the show multiple times. So we know the difference between PR and marketing. God, I have that emblazoned in my brain. But when somebody's first starting out and they're first like, okay, I'm going to do this. I have this wedding. I really love it. I gotta see if I can get this in print. What are the things that they absolutely must have to be there in the submission to be considered?
Yes. So we actually have like a step-by-step guide online that I'm happy to share with you after for how to submit a wedding to the knot. Like this is like one of our biggest questions that we get.
Okay.
But here's the TLDR I'm going to share. You're going to need access to 2 bright lights if you're the person who's submitting. You will have to start an album creation. So obviously imagery leading with that, but you're also going to need the photographer's permission. So whomever, let's say that you're not the photographer, but you have an amazing, I don't know, partner that you typically work with, you're going to need their sign off. And then you're going to have to enter all of the information that's required. So as you're going, and as you had mentioned earlier, like, it's really hard. It's easy to suss out who is serious about this process based on how willing they are to submit all of the information. And the enthusiasm is oftentimes conveyed. And then as well as the vendors. So like who is part of the vendor team? And of course, like we really care about that because what happens is like, let's say that there's one detail shot that our social team notices from a real wedding album where they're like, whoa, this couple had served mini Aperol spritzes. I don't know why I think my mind's in Italy today. So Negroni, Aperol, I don't know. I like need to go to the Mediterranean ASAP. I just got back from vacation too. But it's just like you need to fill out all of this information because you never know like who is going to be focusing on what in terms of promotion of this. So it could be our social team, it could be a digital album, or it could be used in articles. Like let's say that we have an article about different styles of hair, like long hairstyles for your wedding. And that's what's really lovely about this is that it allows the editors to tap this as a resource for a lot of the pieces that we're writing down the road too. So it's not just like a real wedding album, but 2 Bright Lights is like the catch-all portal where we can eventually potentially use examples from your events within our content.
Is there ever an opportunity where you see something elsewhere and then you're like, you know what? We love it so much. We're going to reach out to them directly. Does that ever happen?
Yeah, it happens often actually. When we see something go viral on social media, for example, we will reach out to the videographer immediately. Lately, it looks so much about the social ecosphere is about video content,
Yeah.
or we see like a really funny detail shot, or we see a cool, like honestly, the Ambani wedding, like you see like really neat examples of photos there. Then we'll reach out to the vendors who are involved. So it could be through all avenues, but our editors are constantly like on the hunt, and we're like, this is a really good idea. Who knew that wedding guest phone books would be like the hippest trend? Um, yeah,
I
but we
love
see
I
it.
love I love the fact that you're in a job where scrolling on your phone is like, oh, they're working.
If
It's
somebody
true.
is creating a blog and let's say they have a really great post, is there a way for them to maybe enhance it on your site? Or is there, if they're not necessarily a planner?
Ooh, good question.
That is a good question. So what like do you mean from like the couple's perspective, or like let's say like a hairstylist creates something?
Like, for example, I actually just created one yesterday, and I went in today and tweaked it. But it's on eco-friendly stationery and accessories and enhancing the wedding overall for like a couple who is working on doing something maybe green wedding related.
Ooh,
So
very
Marcy, I love this topic actually, because I really care about our environment so much, and obviously, like, quite often a couple would for a be looking for eco-friendly advice for their wedding, but also the editors ourselves, we might be writing pieces around this, like what do eco-friendly invitations look like? Are they seed paper? Like what exactly is it? And if you were to send it to us, I don't know if we would necessarily copy and paste your blog, because a lot of the work we have to do as editors and as journalists needs to be like original. So
Right.
what we would then do is say, whoa, she's an expert in this space. She has a lot of experience planning or, working on these types of opportunities or moments. And we should be reaching out to Marcy to be our potential expert in the story. So if that's one way to see it. But yeah, more so like how are you establishing yourself and showing up in the wedding space in a different way?
Look,
Wonderful.
Marcy,
Okay.
you're going to be known as an expert for the knot. That's excellent. No,
I
I'm
will
just,
keeping
send
you
you
in mind.
my article.
yeah, I'm throwing it out to the universe. If you throw it out to the universe, it will
It
happen.
may come back, right?
It's so true though. That is so true. I'm really big on energy, by the way, and you
Me
both have
too.
great energy.
Right? Oh, thanks. Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
Look, we have good energy. I love that. By the way,
energy.
my doctor called me stable too. So I was like, what? Okay, I'm stable. I think he was talking about health wise, whatever. Just
What a
I'm like,
blessing.
right, annual checkup. He's like, man, you're the most stable human being. I was like, you call, let me record that, please. You just said I'm stable. Um, but no, but seriously, I mean, those are some of the things is like, Marcy has obviously been in the business and has been an expert, and we know her as an expert down here in South Florida. I mean, she gets referred to constantly because she's always got her finger on the trends. But that brings up a secondary point. What are the things that the Knot is working on or interested in covering now, next season, future? Is there like a place that you can go for like kind of like these are the stories that we're interested in, or is that also part of Two Bright Lights?
No, there's so much more. So Two Bright Lights is just one piece of it, which is really the imagery submissions, and then our real weddings, which I explained to you now. So I'm glad
Right.
that we clarified that, by the way. But oftentimes, like, so I'm going to use an example just to sort of illustrate how this can happen.
Yeah.
I was at a conference a few years ago, and a vendor came up to me. I don't know if you know Beth Chapman from the White Dress Society, but she's like, a bridal stylist, runs a bunch of bridal salons, and also like is like the leader of a collective of salon owners just to help them like elevate their businesses. And she was an educator for us at the time for the Knot. And she walked up to me after a conference. I had given a talk on editorial, how to get published, very much like this.
Like that.
And I actually asked the crowd, I was just like, we, and I mean this, like, we really need to hear from you. Because if you're noticing things from your point of view, and there might be a looming crisis, or you're seeing recurring patterns of misunderstanding, or there's an education gap with something, then isn't it our duty and responsibility as editors to address those moments within the industry too. So as wedding editors, especially for the industry, like we're not only interested in couples stories, but we're also interested in what you as the vendors are seeing. So I'll give the example. She came up to me and she said, we have a crisis with seamstresses. And I was like, what? And I was like, whoa, that's interesting. She's like, there's not enough. Yeah. There's not enough seamstresses. They're all retiring right now. And it's creating like a big gap between the salon owners who are dealing with the demand from the couples and like the timing of it all. And the fact that it was the busiest year in weddings wasn't helpful either. But, all that was happening. And she noticed, with these outgoing seamstresses, like there's not enough young folks who are stepping into their shoes. So now there's an industry-wide gap. And I was like, whoa, that's fascinating. Like this is the story. And so like after much reporting, I did a ton of reporting. I'll never forget. I was like running around Union Square, walking into studios and having conversations with seamstresses. But it was really good because I also I tend to ask a lot of questions. Like I'm burning to ask you both questions right now, but this is your show, so I won't.
No, you can ask questions. We're good with that. Please, we love this. It's interactive. Hello. Anyway.
Yeah. But what the seamstress says, like she basically handed me that opportunity to think about the story and to start reporting it out. And now I feel like it's turning into something so much bigger, but it was such a big moment for me as well as an editor to be able to dive into this like investigative piece about like what's happening. But really it's a crisis that needs to be addressed in the industry.
Well, I'm so glad you brought that out.
Yeah,
I really am. Because like,
what?
Yeah, that actually, my family was in the world of, dry cleaning, seamstress. That was like their history back in the day. And it's funny, but I was actually looking for a dress at the start of the pandemic for a conference. Not at the start, but it was like maybe about 6 months in. And they were talking, I heard them talking about the fact that their seamstress was going to be retiring. And I'm like thinking to myself, this is like an industry that just is like disappearing and it's really sad. And I'm like, the fact that you had the wherewithal to bring that to light so that you can flesh it out for other people to understand what's going on. Yep. That's like amazing because, you don't think like on our level, we don't think about it, but it really is an issue.
Well,
thank you, Marcy.
I'm really excited too, because according to the seminars that we were listening to, Gen Zs are going back to trade schools in larger numbers than ever. And so I feel like there is light at the end of the tunnel for some of this.
God,
because, right?
I have to say this. I love Gen Z. I'm so interested in their lingo and their terminology. I drop the word sus now. Like that's sus. Fact, you're so hip. Like who thought to wear like sneakers at the club? I used to walk around in stilettos like in the office.
Right.
Like, what? Yeah. They
want to protect their feet because they're like, no, we're going to get older and I don't want to screw up my feet now.
Yeah.
Like,
or my lower back. They're just like, they get it. But Marcy, and the fact that your family has this history and like there's almost like immigration involved too. So this story, I'll have to send it to you both after, but like the fact that like there's so many different layers involved with these industries now, and the fact that these are real things that we're facing as a collective wedding industry is fascinating to me. I love that Gen Z is returning to trade. We have a lot to learn from their TikToks and the videos that they're creating, and there's just the creativity of it all too. I have a neighbor who actually is a seamstress on the side, so it's like her side hustle, and she's done some of my alterations within our neighborhood. It's so fascinating, and she creates content around like stitching and sewing, and like asks really cool questions like, tell me 3 things about yourself, and I'll tell you what fabric you are.
That's a whole article right there. Oh my God. I would read that article. I'd be like, oh, I wonder kind of, I'm poly. Oh.
Yeah. But the point being that basically like storytelling can be from anything that you're seeing, especially on your ends. Yeah. And what you can share with us too is possible fodder for our content, especially because if you feel like it's an issue or it's something that's worth bringing to light, then like I love hearing from you. And the editors care about this too, because we want to help problem solve too.
Well, and plus you're like solving issues before they become massive issues. So if people are educated about that, read up on it, then there's somebody out there that starts filling that gap. They're like, oh, I see a need, I'm going to fill it because that's a way to make money, and that's a way to like enhance my career. I mean, that's pretty incredible. I mean, to be you in the wedding industry, which is already fascinating on so many levels, because there's obviously being an entrepreneur or being an artist or being a musician or a venue or any of these things. I mean, there's just so many directions that can be taken with just the world of weddings itself. It's just incredible.
Yeah, I agree, Keith. Wait, Keith, are you seeing anything lately that I should be aware? Marcy, or both of you, are you seeing anything that I should be aware of?
There's a ton of stuff that we talk about. I mean, that was one of the things that we were like, oh, do we even bring this up like on air, because we don't want to cause a rift with anything. But and we'll talk to you offline about some of these things.
Okay.
There are some things coming out, but I will tell you that I'm so happy that there is now a Generation Z, that millennials are no longer the hope of the world. And I'm probably going to piss some people off with this, but I'm so glad that there's a Generation Z, because now I have hope for the world again, because they are saving, they are taking care of themselves, they are like doing things that, oh my God, I just find fascinating on so many levels. And it's nice to see. It's like the pendulum is starting to swing back. So it's nice to see. And you get to be on the tip of it because you're reporting on it and you're seeing it like every day.
Yeah, it's great. Like flash photography is back. Who would have thought?
What?
Yes.
Right? Flash photography out of nowhere. And you're like, really? Oh my God. Well, so talking about like those kind of topics, because not everything's super happy joy when it comes to the world of weddings. And one of the organizations that you're involved in is the Advisory Council of Vow for Girls, which is focusing on ending the injustices of child marriage around the world. I mean, as wedding professionals, obviously we are like, marriage is all happy joy, but it's not in some areas. And I am so fascinated to hear your story about being involved with this incredible organization, because we all hear horror stories about it. We hear about child brides and all that's happening, and people that don't even have a choice, that they are married off before they're 12 to some old creepy guy because of something family issues.
And it's very underground.
It's all super underground, and what I find really fascinating is that you said it's happening here in the United States too. That there are states here in the United States that still it's not illegal. Can you tell us a little bit more about Vow and talk about this?
Yeah, I was like, let me take a sip of my water because I'm gonna go on
right?
my preaching online situation. Okay. So even on the not, a million couples plan their weddings with us each year. So and these couples have a choice. They're in love. And they get to plan the wedding that they desire because they want to celebrate their love story. I think that's awesome.
Amazing.
So some stats for Vow that I want to just share with you based on that. According to UNICEF, I believe it's 12 million girls a year. They don't have that choice. So they're forced into child marriage.
12 million a year?
Yes. And it could be more or less like by a small modicum, but it's a blight and it's an injustice, because what happens is that these girls who are under the age of, marrying age of any kind, they're preteens, they're children, like they're not developed yet, even cognitively, are then placed into this role of wife or dutiful wife, and eventually become mothers, eventually become subject to, a patriarchal way of living and suppression. And this is across cultures and countries around the world. So yeah, it is dark. But what ends up happening is that there are economic ramifications. I'm going to bring it down to the money too, which is that billions, not even just billions, and hundreds of billions of dollars actually end up being lost because these girls end up losing their childhood in the midst of being forced into into marriage.
Right.
And there's economic disparity that happens within these certain countries. And a lot of this is cultural, like in Afghanistan or in certain regions of the world or certain tribes. Like it really depends. And even in our backyard in the US, like this can happen. But if a world that invests in girls invests in a promising future, and this is why this organization means so much, not only because of the wedding tie, but just because like girls don't deserve this. And I get so upset when I think about, like, I read a lot of Greek mythology that's reimagined, and I just think about what women and children have to go through with any kind of situation that is really dark in the world. But it's the fact that like they don't have a choice.
Oy. Because that's the thing, is that when we think about weddings, obviously our brain always goes to, the girls have their, it's, I know this is probably a misnomer, but girls think about their wedding all, since they were 12 years old, or since they were young, they thought about like the white dress and all that stuff. And that is not the case for 12 million girls a year.
Yeah.
That they don't get to live that dream. They don't get to have that future hope. It is a nightmare situation. It's one of those things that will ruin them and their mentality for the rest of their lives. And
Yeah.
And the thing is that we have to protect our female colleagues. We have to. I mean, they are literally birthing the future.
Yeah, exactly.
And how this has ever come about and why this even came about. But for goodness sakes, we are now in the 21st century, right? 21st or 22nd? I always get that messed up. But you know what I mean? I mean, the thing is that we're in today's state. Why is this still happening in the world? And I love the fact that there's an organization. And by the way, we've been running it on the ticker tape below. So vow4girls.org, VOW4girls.org, to learn more about it. But it's such an important piece about the wedding industry, because we have to, not only do we look at the good, but we have to look at the bad in order to make sure it becomes better for everyone.
Yes. And I do want to chime in on actually, or on the hopeful side of all of this, which is the Knot was a founding partner of Vow for Girls, which was founded by Princess Mabel of the Netherlands. And we worked in tandem with her to launch this, many years ago. And what this program does is that it really unites the wedding industry. So like planners, photographers, like just folks who have who really care about this cause, designers, and brings everyone together to advocate against, this scourge of child marriage. And ultimately, what's been really amazing is that, by attending different mixers or, attending different advisory council calls, I have realized that there are amazing, heart-centered humanitarians who exist within our own industry. And they are advocating and fighting against child marriage through this organization and platform, which when we raise funds for Vow, it ends up actually directly going to fight or help families who otherwise might have had to deal with child marriage for economic reasons, or provides resources to help these girls get an education. So it's real, and that impact is felt throughout the world.
It's impressive. I have to tell you,
Yes.
Considering all that you have to watch, see, and deal with, to have, because it's easy to turn a blind eye. It is easy to focus on the happy, happy, joy, joy, because who doesn't like a beautiful bride? We all love a beautiful bride. That's our world that we're living in currently, and that's not everybody's world. So I'm so glad that you had a moment to talk about it and bring it up, because I think what does it say? It needs more publications. Need more publicity, which is what we're talking about, publicity.
Well, because it's also affecting the future generations within that same dynamic. It's going to continuously, it's going to continue on if nothing changes.
Is it getting better, by the way? Have you seen a difference over the years, or is it getting worse?
That's a great question. I think there were some impacts from COVID, and it depends sometimes even with the news. So like things that are happening throughout the world, there could be effects there. But great question. I cannot confirm nor deny. I will let you know.
Because I'm just thinking that because, the world of the editorial world has got to have been changing pretty dramatically over the last 10 years, because it used to be all print, then it was print media, and then it was social media on top of that. And then the access to the World Wide Web is growing dramatically. Now with the Starlight system that is going to be covering basically all the areas that used to not have access to the World Wide Web and the information from all over the world. And I think education is a big part of ending things like this.
Yes.
Right? Because because they're probably from areas that they don't know any better. That's how their mom was married. That's how their grandparents were married. So, well, yeah, of course that's going to happen to me, but that's not the way it's supposed to be. And so I feel like your job has probably gotten harder with the fact that we've got multiple layers now.
Yeah. We're lucky to have a research team and fact checkers and, different layers. But that's where I feel like that's where the sourcing is so important for us, is like to have these real conversations directly with the source, and then to make sure that the storytelling is vetted. But the storytelling of it all really matters. And that's where I feel like so many outlets are the writers and the editors and the team members there just, diving into it and trying to make an impact where it's most needed. But
you can feel the passion. I mean, honestly, when we talk about finding the passion, feeling the passion, you can feel the passion on your side about what you do and how you do it. I mean, it's obvious that this is what you were meant to do. But I did want to dive ever so slightly into the ChatGPT phenomenon and how that is affecting your job, because I just did it for my own, I had to rewrite my pricing sheet because my previous one sounded like it came from a 12-year-old, which it did. Hi. But I wanted to do better. Zhuzh it up. And so I went into ChatGPT and said, please rewrite this for me. And 10 seconds later, I was like, what? Is that how I sound when I have a brain? But, that was the craziest thing. But when it comes to stories, how is that affecting your world? How do you deal with that?
Great question. I actually really appreciate this. So I'm one of those people who acknowledges that it's here, right? Yeah. It's part of our world. The question is, how do I use it for my benefit? And the editors at the Knot, we do not use AI at all. It's part of our editorial policy. Yeah. Other than potential transcription. So transcribing stories means that we're talking to you, Keith, and then I'm taking our interview and making sure that it's transcribed perfectly, so that we don't botch your words or mince your words. So every single person that we talk to over an interview, a story is transcribed. And oftentimes that's where a tool is utilized. Other than that, we don't use it at all to create content.
That's amazing, by the way.
Yeah. And it's important to us too, because there's an integrity with which we want to make sure the storytelling is told. But I want to ask ChatGPT to write an investigative piece for me and interview 8 subjects and then run through it and make sure that it's factually correct. That to me, I'm sure it can come up with some of it and the basics, but the question is can you really dive into the true heart of the reporting through machine? And I would argue the answer is no. But here's the other part of how I feel about AI. I think it's fascinating that vendors are starting to rely on it now for productivity purposes. I've heard from a few folks actually about some really neat services that have emerged in the market. So Keith, if you're using it for some of your your materials for marketing, some couples are actually, I don't know if you've heard of this service where there's AI generated vows now or speeches.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I've actually had 3 couples that have talked about that because they got stuck writing their own vows. So they just wrote in how they felt about the other person, their feelings, and let ChatGPT create their vows.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
It's so cool. The founder, Steven, he was at Engage in December, and it was just such a unique service where he was you just and then you can also make it inclusive. So if your speech inclusive, because who like the speech writing of it all is actually really terrifying. It's not like, but they're actually under the guidance and the facilitation of like White House speech writers who provided some feedback. So there is almost like the question is like, how will the industry evolve at some point? How are people using AI for their designs?
Right.
For timeline and scheduling. And I just feel like it's really interesting. We might be having a very different conversation a year later, but for now, keeping an eye on it. And it's not impacting our day-to-day jobs as much, but I'm like kind of like, AI, how will you help us? How will you help us do our jobs better?
Well, I just was wondering, like, if somebody writes, because when you talked about your submission process and that, you need to have, a pretty robust writing experience, talking about the couple, their background, the wedding, the design. I mean, it would be really easy to make that even more robust by sticking it into ChatGPT and having it write for you. I mean, are there tells that you look for that you see and you're like, oh, okay, this isn't as authentic as they're coming across?
That's a great question, because I want to point out, like, sometimes when I'm thinking about things, I know the content I wanted to include. Yep. I just want to make it sound understandable so that the person reading it gets my message in the way that I'm trying to communicate it.
I wanted to make it sound smarter than I actually am. That's what I wanted to do.
Someone said it really, I think this has been regurgitated like by like so many different industry leaders and folks, but no matter what, AI is always going to need the human touch. Like these two components are essential. So it's almost like, yes, I don't know. I look at some graphics and I'm like, that's totally AI generated. That is like, but that only a human can create something that's like that only the human eye can perceive.
Right.
And so, yeah, some things might be really beautiful or sound lovely, which are AI generated. But on the other hand, as a society, we care so much about authenticity, right? And showing up as ourselves and being ourselves that our voices will still need to resonate. So if you're using it, Marcy, for like, the purposes of making yourself sound good, ultimately only you know what sounds good. And you're the one who's able to extrapolate that or massage what needs to be done in order for it to sound like you.
Right, because you're constantly feeding it, and then you're constantly having to like say, no, I don't like the wording, give me something else. And you do have to kind of play with it. It's not like you can take it for face value.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, it's still going to be your voice because you have to go back in and make the changes to make it sound more like you. I get it. It's another tool, but that it's just basically, hopefully, becomes another tool that we use along the road to help us sound more like ourselves in the long run.
Yeah. And all of this is like my own opinion. Like I'm not representing an entity or the not right now by saying this. It's more so like, how do I see AI right now? But I will tell you, like our day-to-day workflows haven't changed as an editorial team right now. And we are certainly not using AI to snuff out amazing content. So like we're using our own selves and our own eyes to be able to ensure that we're capturing the best that there is that we can have in the issue and across our digital platforms.
Oh my God. We have run like so long. I don't like, oh my God, I don't want to like go too long because then people are going to be like, okay, I'm tired of listening to you.
I do want to ask one more question because I've been eyeing this question.
Yeah.
Thinking about this question. So I understand that the Knot was in tune or they had some involvement in the Crazy Rich Asians, which is one of my favorite movies.
I was going to ask
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes,
Marcy. Oh my gosh, the timing couldn't have been more perfect. I just got back from Singapore. So,
oh my gosh.
Yes, where the Crazy Rich, and I was like, you should have seen me.
I am so jelly right now.
Have you been?
No, I mean, I've been to China. Well, I guess I've been to China, I've been to Japan.
I wanted to go.
But I haven't been to Taiwan but tell us.
Yes. So I did. Yeah. Like it's like so clean and so organized and such a beautiful city. But Gardens by the Bay is actually where the reception for the Crazy Rich Asians wedding was held. And a lot of those scenes, like the Raffles Hotel, or there's a few other like streets or like, the church. I walked by the church casually and I was like, oh, this is a church from the Crazy Rich Asians movie, which is super, super well known on the island. But basically, like, it was really interesting to actually be there and to see like the movie come to life. And that movie did incredible things for the tourism locally too. Apparently, there's actually Crazy Rich Asians tour, Crazy Rich Asians tours.
Sure. Come on. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait for the sequel. But that being said, the first time around, the studio, I believe, like the studio came to us and they were like, there's a lot of wedding scenes in Crazy Rich Asians. And I hadn't read the books yet by Kevin Kwan. So I was like, oh, at least the title's intriguing. I want to watch this. So I went to a screener. And I sat in the theater and I watched this. And by the end of it, I was bawling. Like when that ring comes out, I was bawling. Like I couldn't believe what I just seen. There was a bachelorette party. There was a crazy bachelor party. There were just like a really beautiful wedding scene, with the music.
I'm sorry. The river aisle was like one of my favorite things ever.
Beautiful.
Oh my God. I mean, like, the water pouring down. I was
and
like,
the fabrics.
Yeah.
The little details, like the fabrics were amazing. I mean, like
incredible.
Amazing.
Did they go to y'all for advice and for input?
Well, they came to us more so like we should definitely partner on this because like it's a huge opportunity for us. And after I saw the movie, I was like, we need to partner. Like I remember going, and our PR team was like, we need to everybody. So like, we need to partner. So we all, as a team, came together and came up with some concepts for content and like social. And I was fortunate enough to attend the premiere, and I'll never forget it because it's like, you're talking to, I don't know, Henry Golding, like 4 times. He's like, you again. I'm like, yeah, it's me.
Oh my God. He's like, you again. Oh my God. You're like, we're buds. Oh, that's who I am. Excellent. I love that.
I think what we've realized throughout, and even Kevin Kwan, the author, is brilliant. And I can't wait for the sequels to come out too, because it focuses on some of the other characters. What I realized from this experience is that weddings touch and span cultures, ethnicities, backgrounds. It was a huge representation moment across Asian cultures. And certainly for the island of Singapore, where most of the scenes were held, but even more so just the fact that it's embedded everywhere. And this movie just sort of amplified the fact that the engagement ring happens, that the wedding happens, and that love is resonant across all cultures.
Oh, you were so in love with what you do. I love that. You're so in love with what you do. You just feel it. Oh my God.
Thanks. I am. I'm fortunate. I'm really lucky, but it really is like working in weddings. And I don't know if you feel this way too. It's hard to say it's negative overall, right? Yeah. Like it's celebratory. What we do is all about, I'm holding up our celebrations issue for Christ's sake. It's such a moment for us to help couples really celebrate and think about like the true meaning of their relationship and life and love. There's so many different inflection points, and I feel grateful. I feel like many of my colleagues also feel the same way. They carry that same ethos, which is the fact that like we're just lucky to be here and we're lucky to cover this day in and day out, and it creates a very positive atmosphere. Also, to be able to talk to pros like you, I'm always like, tell me more, tell me details. Our ones to watch list, by the way, I don't know if you've heard about.
Stop.
Our list of even like the next generation of like up and coming wedding professionals, like really like the most promising talent, like that dropped today too, with their issue. And I don't know, like it's just like all sides of the business. It's just great to me. I feel grateful to be here.
Well, with that, we're going to say we are grateful that you came on the show, and so happy that you were, because this has been crazy, wide-ranging conversation. I mean, we went everywhere on this one, so I know there's just so much more to discuss, but at some point we're going to have to pause because I'm sure people are like pausing on us.
Sorry.
But no, Esther, please, we had the best time. Thank you so much. I love your
positive and passion for this.
Yeah, you just got this like we need you in our lives in the morning when we first wake up, and we need that like happy joy.
I always say it's about mindset. You can go through life miserable, but I choose to keep it optimistic, keep it upbeat. Upbeat.
You're amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it was a pleasure. And then, of course, next Tuesday, we'll be back at 2:00. But today, we're going to say goodbye. Everybody, say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
I almost forgot what the button was.